when we are talking about love in our programs today, when we are talking about thinking critically, trusting each other, being responsible of our actions, it's helping people to change. If we had that in the past, we would not be talking about genocide today.
Thank you, Keel, and thank you all for joining us today. This is the Aegis Trust bringing you this segment of the Together We Remember 24-hour vigil. And with me on screen is Freddie Mutangua, the Executive Director of Aegis Trust, and Anita is with us, I believe. Yes, I can see you now, Anita, who is the Program Director of Aegis Trust programs in Rwanda. Before we begin our conversation, we're going to take a short film of a poem that was produced by Natasha Mahoza, a Rwandan artist, who was reflecting on her thoughts of how Rwanda is developing and progressing. This was 25 years after the genocide.
Come, let me take you on a journey. Come with me on this path of pain that trails behind me. Don't be afraid. Don't assume. Don't turn your back or look away. Come. Let me remind you of my motherland, land of milk and honey that once reeked of blood, whose sky once housed dark clouds, whose palms folded, skin cringed at the sight and sound and smell of death. It was 100 days, 25 years ago, of harrowing horror, hurled upon human by human, merciless massacre, machete to flesh to bone. Evil had a face. Despite it all, ours is a story of hope more than despair, of survival though our wounds threaten to take the very life in us. It's about strength and resilience of thousands of parentless orphans, childless parents, rape victims, men and women whose struggle is not for the faint-hearted but who rise every day to live. So don't turn your back or look away from a history too real to erase. But even if you tried, you must face the countless names etched on countless tombstones, face the skulls lined in over 200 memorial sites, eternally reminding us to remember, remember, remember. Never to forget that 25 years is a blink of an eye, yet a lifetime of rebirth for Rwanda. Home was snatched back from hell. We now speak again of hills where God lays his head and sleeps. Say they what they may, but Rwanda's flame burns bright. We choose to move, foot forward to a future unknown, but we carry memory, oh so powerful memory, of unspeakable things we'd rather keep behind us and walk forward free. Free of hate, unshackled by blindness, seeing human as human, all shapes and sizes human, all colors and creeds human. See, healing means time and work, and 25 years on, here we are. Still striving, still learning, still yearning, still not giving in to the voices that say it is over. No, we will be here till the end of time. In fact, this is only the beginning of a new day. tried and tested, we remember. Despite our difference, we unite. Shaking off the dust from past destruction, we are constantly renewing. Rwanda rwacu rwiza, uzatemba amahoro iteka.
Very moving performance from Natasha Muhoza, reflecting 25 years after the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. And Freddie Mutangura, the Executive Director of Aegis Trust. I see you're based at the moment at the Kigali Genocide Memorial. And when you see videos like this, it must take you back. Many of us who are listening today, we weren't in Rwanda. We have very little concept of what happened during the genocide against the Tutsi. As a survivor, can you give us a brief insight into the terror that was taking place in April 1994 in Rwanda?
Thank you very much, James. 27 years ago in Rwanda, a very small country in East African region, today inhabitant of 12 million people. This country experienced a horrible genocide in 20th centuries. In the genocide, which happened in April 1994, 1 million of Tutsi were murdered, brutally killed by the militiamen in the support of the former government that really supported the whole killings that happened at that time. We're in April month this time, and we're in commemoration period, and agree, and this event, this moment, it comes actually in the month of commemoration in Rwanda. So these people, this genocide that happened in my country was not a spontaneous event. It was carefully prepared, and all propaganda, all the hatred have been really taught in schools and different places. And the Tutsi, since 30 years prior, before genocide, they were discriminated, and they were deprived with basic rights, the right to go to school, the right to work, and the right to move even in the country from one region to another one. And many Tutsis have been arrested, and they've been tortured, and also the many of them have been also killed. And up to 1994, the final solution, where 1 million of Tutsi were brutally killed and murdered, and their bodies been thrown in the mass graves, in the river, and different places where there's no respect for them. So this time is a good time to pay respect to those victims that were killed, those innocent men, women, and children who were slaughtered the time of genocide, to think about how can we, based on the memory of genocide, and be committed to never again.
Freddie, if you don't mind me asking, among the victims were your 4 sisters and your parents, and you witnessed, or you were within earshot of them when they were murdered in the genocide.
That's correct, James. That's correct, James. Among the victims is my family, who were killed in 1994 genocide. On 7th of April, when the genocide started, my mother, who actually advised me to leave my home and go to hide in my colleagues in a primary school house, where I spent a week And in this week, my family have been attacked several times, and my family managed to push back the attackers by giving them money or food, but all the time, not any single time, any single day, they were not attacked. So during the time I was in hiding, I had opportunity, and I was lucky that my mother managed to sneak evening times to come and see me and tell me actually what is going on at our house. And she was been actually bringing sometimes some food, because I was living in a family, a poor family, where they used to eat one time per day. And one evening on the 13th of April, 6 days after the genocide started, she came to see me, and she was really hopeless. You can see in her eyes, she approached me and say that Freddie may not be, maybe the last time I see you, because I can see the scale of the genocide that is happening around the region. But if I don't see you again, if they kill me sometime today or tomorrow, be a man. That was being a man in our culture is, and if a parent tells how his child to be a man, it's more than a word. To be a man is much more encouragement, and it means that you may be that you don't have a support, you don't have anyone to talk to, and you don't have anyone to give a shoulder. So stand up, be so after that was true, because after one day on the 14th of April, the attackers came to my house and killed them all. Only my sister, she survived, but the others have been killed, my parents, my 4 sisters. And while they were killing them, because they were killed with traditional weapons, the clubs and machetes, and I can hear the screaming, and these voices will never leave my mind, and it will remain there forever. And this time when I remember, actually those voices comes back, and of course this is what I experienced.
Freddie, that's unimaginable to most of us. What you must be feeling at this time of commemoration for your family. You're at the Kigali Genocide Memorial just now. Can you very briefly, before we move on, give a sense of the atmosphere in Kigali and in Rwanda at this remembrance, this Kwibuka, 27 years on?
We are in a period of commemoration, and the Kigali Genocide Memorial definitely provide a space for the commemoration and for survivors to come and pay respect of the genocide against the Tutsi that are buried here. More than 250,000 victims of genocide buried at the Kigali Genocide Memorial, which Aegis Trust played a big role to establish the memorial itself. The mourning period that starts 7th of April, by all the time, each and every having at the head of steps coming and pay and lay wreath and pay respect of the victim of genocide, as on behalf of all Rwandans, as the starting point of mourning period. That happened also last 7th of April. And after that, we received so many survivors and people who come together with the survivors to support them, bringing the flowers, coming and do prayers on the mass graves, and also telling each other the encouraging message that encouraged the survivors to carry on their lives. The commemoration period is really a huge moment for survivors. And it's really a moment to reflect about their own lives, a moment to remember, of course, the people they lost at the time of genocide, but also it's a good moment to think how they can continue their lives, because they get strength through remembrance. They get that idea of who they are, and that idea to be in the place of those people they lost, and fill the gap and be the people who lost their lives, they expected them to be. So that's really very encouragement and encouraging time, but at the same time, of course, is a time, but also the survivors get lives, get encouragement from others and sharing stories, and also doing this commemoration in Kigali, Genocide Awareness Month.
Freddie, after hearing the trauma that individuals have been through, survivors have been through, the entire country has been through, it's almost impossible to imagine how Rwanda can rebuild, can reconcile, can come together again in the next generation. And Aegis Trust has played a role in contributing to this through this rebuilding, through the peace education program. And we're going to hear now in a short film from some of our colleagues about how the peace education developed in Rwanda and has contributed to this rebuilding and resilience against future genocide. And I hope, Freddie, I know that you have a delegation from actually UK Foreign Office, including the Minister of State, to greet, but I hope you're able to join us back at the end of this program in about half an hour, just to have some final discussions and to help lead us in the candle lighting. But thank you for sharing your thoughts and your experiences, Freddie. We're going to take a look at this short film on the development of Aegis Trust Peace Education Program now.
Thank you, James. Right after genocide, it was too difficult to think about the future.
I couldn't imagine that perpetrators and survivors can stay together again.
There was a lot of fear, and anyone could not imagine that actually that would ever end.
Our objectives when we developed the concept was to create a place to remember our beloved relatives, to pay tribute, and a place where people will understand the impact of what's happened to never repeat it in the future.
The Aegis Trust was born out of the whole experience of the Holocaust Centre in the UK. So we were familiar with the importance of memorials and memory.
It was hard to design a program suitable for children with different backgrounds, but we came up with a new approach.
We use stories like the story of Grace in 1994. She was 10 years old, and against all odds, against the opposition of the grandmother, she chose to save this baby. If a 10-year-old was able to show empathy, to show critical thinking, to show personal responsibility, anyone can do that.
You cannot give what you do not have. So if you're a teacher of peace, you have to be a person of peace. I was surprised by one of the killers when he came to Kigali Genocide Memorial and he started crying. I asked myself, who's this? I thought that this man had completely lost his humanity, but I found out that he retained some humanity that we need to take the opportunity and disarm their hearts and minds.
Ibyo kuko numvaga ko abahutu abatutsi badakwiye kubana nabo kubera ibintu bakoze, ibyo abahutu ntibari bakwiye natwe twagakwiye kubishyura, ariko kubera ibintu abandi baje baratuganiriza dusanga ahubwo dukwiye kujya hamwe tugasenyera umugozi umwe none tukubaka igihugu.
This program brings a lot of young people from different parts of the country who are trained in leadership, conflict resolution, how to start up peace-building projects. They go back to their own communities, they find out which problems they have, and then they come up with solutions.
A very touching message is coming from a student in the Chumbi district. After the training, he said, "You were late," and he cried. My brothers went in FDR. Me also, I had to go for next week to join my brother. Now, you saved my life. But if you came before, you should have saved the life of my brother. This is a touching story to me.
People were speaking their minds and hearts. One student just stood up and said, "This workshop has saved my life and the life of people that I was going to revenge."
When we are talking about love in our programs today, when we are talking about thinking critically, trusting each other, being responsible of our actions, it's helping people to change. If we had that in the past, we would not be talking about genocide today.
The peace education program has been integrated into the national curriculum. When we started it, no one imagined it will have an impact and the success it has achieved today.
So we're joined now by Anita Kairangwa. Hello, welcome Anita. Anita's the program director of the Aegis Trust, so is responsible for the peace education program that we've just heard about in that short film. And Anita, first of all, again, to acknowledge this is a difficult time for you as well as a survivor of the genocide. I know that we always introduce you as our program director, but this is also a very personal and challenging time for you. And thank you for being with us to help share more about the work that you oversee in Rwanda. Can you give us a little bit more of a background of how the peace education program came to be developed in Rwanda?
Thank you, James. The Aegis Trust mission is about preventing crimes against humanity. So it goes without saying that it's about peace education. So to achieve this, Aegis Trust has its own peace model, which posits that sustainable peace is achieved when one takes care of the psychosocial reconstruction of those affected by ended crimes against humanity, mass atrocities, or genocide. It also looks at the evidence-based, or it works on evidence-based campaigns to speak out and advocate for people at risk. And also it looks at peace education through both non-formal and formal education. This basically consists of training on critical thinking, as well as education for values and positive attitudes. So we are looking at the past, we are looking at the present, but we are also looking at the future. Our peace education program, which is essentially transformative, intends to cultivate the knowledge base. We are trying to increase people's knowledge, their skills and attitude and values, and seek to transform people's behaviors that in the first place have either created or exacerbated violent conflicts. It's always about really checking what happened in the past and how can we avoid it? How can we make sure that it doesn't happen again? It seeks this transformation by building awareness and understanding to develop concern, and finally challenging personal and social action that will enable people to create conditions and systems that actualize nonviolence, justice, environmental care, and other peace values. So to achieve this change, we worked directly with the Ministry of Education and specifically Rwanda Education Board. Freddie talked about having peace and values education in the curriculum as a cross-cutting issue. This might not come out very clear, so we had to sit with teachers, we had to sit with people who are concerned to think about how this can be included in the curriculum. So we see peace and values education like as a content. We also see it as a teaching approach or methodology, and also through teachers' attitudes. Teachers are supposed to be role models, so we really talk about their attitude in the classroom. So you wanted to ask something, James?
No, you're answering the question already. I was just asking if you could give some sort of a sense of how Aegis Trust is supporting the peace education program, both at the Kigali Genocide Memorial, but beyond that. And you began to answer that question already.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also adding to what we do with the formal education, we also work with parents. We give them some good content on peace education, but also we equip them to be able to start this conversation with their children. It's not an easy conversation with young ones. And also sometimes the young people that we meet here at the memorial, they tell us, you tell us this, and when we get home, we get some kind of information which is not really like the information that we get here. So we want parents and teachers to work together and really build the next generation in a peaceful way, and also be able to talk about those difficult conversations, such as the genocide perpetrated against Tutsi, and also its consequences, because there are so many. We also work with young people. Some of them, we meet them here at the memorial, others we meet them outside the memorial, outside of Kigali. With them, again, we always start with peace education, but for young people, we see them as really a big voice in the community. We also teach them some skills. We teach them some skills on how to advocate, to do advocacy, and to play a role in leadership. Come up with small projects that bring them together. When we talk about projects with young people, it's not only about projects. Yes, they get something, they improve their lives, but also it is something that brings them together as a community. Something that if it's not there, maybe Tutsi will be somewhere else, Hutu will be somewhere else, Twas will be somewhere else, any other person in the community will be somewhere else. But when they're working on one thing, then it's an occasion. We are creating space for them to be together. Finally, we also work with decision makers. We want to influence the structure, we want to influence the environment. With decision makers, we work mostly with researchers. They go in the community, they come up with the relevant themes, and through their work, through their research, they can inform decision makers. As they take their decisions, they should be informed by what is happening in the community, instead of maybe assuming what is happening, but someone who has gone through deep research, who has talked to teachers, who has talked to parents, who has talked to community members, to give them some good content that informs their policy and decision making. So yeah, basically that's what we do in peace education.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great overview of the wide impact of peace education in Rwanda. Anita, just a very quick question about, it's the commemoration period, and we're taking part right now in the Together We Remember vigil. And is there a way in which the peace education is influencing the commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi?
So our peace education program was built around the logic and the main topics that are covered by the mobile exhibition. One of the tools that we use here at the Kigali Genocide Memorial, we call it mobile because it is movable, it's not fixed. And it was created under the theme of peace building after genocide. So when you start from there, then you know that you're building peace after genocide. And we're also helping people to revisit their memories, their stories, but most importantly, remember those people who behaved differently. We're talking about what we went through, what was bad, what was wrong, but we are also pointing out those people who behaved differently when everyone else was doing really involved in the genocide. So the mobile exhibition reflects 4 key areas, namely that is the history. You can't talk about genocide without tackling the history of Rwanda. It talks about the genocide itself. When you talk about genocide, it's not an easy kind of conversation, but we really face it. We face it with either being with survivors or any other person who is participating in our training. We look at it, we talk about the consequences, but we also talk about peace building. We are not stuck in the past, and we really make sure that as we discuss, as we talk, we are not stuck in the past. We have to move on, we have to take a step, no matter how small it may be, but we have to move. Our peace education program recognizes that genocide perpetrated against Tutsi is a sign of human failure, and that the greatest resource for building and rebuilding a culture of peace are the people themselves. For it is actually through them that peaceful relationships are created. So we are talking to people, we have to bring them at the center of our conversation and really allow them to remember, because it can happen. It can happen as we talk. We encourage people to revisit their past. So during our training, someone can start recounting what this person, what he went through. We give them that space. There's a counselor who is there listening and helping this person to recount what they went through. We also recognize that genocide cannot happen if the government is not involved. But again, we emphasize personal responsibility. We emphasize the concept like critical thinking. In the video that we watched, we're talking about Grace. We're talking about, Grace, she decided by herself. The grandmother was not with her, like in her thoughts. No one was really, everyone was against, but she thought critically and decided to save this baby. So we're telling people, think critically, don't really move with the crowd. We talk about empathy. We talk about active bystandership. We talk about social reconstruction. We talk about listening and sharing. Many survivors would like to someone who is able to listen. They want to talk, and when they're ready to talk, they would like to have someone who is ready to give that ear, to listen to their stories, and the personal commitment. Like when we finish our training, we take decisions. There's something that we call decision tree, where everyone who is participating commits to doing something in the community to make sure that what we went through in 1994, what every other person went through during other genocides in the world, it doesn't happen again. And through our work, we contribute also to memory preservation. The genocide, the memorial themselves have to be preserved.
There are places of remembering and there are places of learning. We also preserve physical evidence and also non-physical evidence. And those evidences are used to commemorate. This is something that we also brought in the picture for people to commemorate. Yeah. Also, our contribution and our peace education allows for physical, as I said before, allows for physical and emotional space for survivors in particular and the Rwandans and the world in general to remember the loved victims and restore their dignity, which was taken away from them. So when we collect different testimonies, we are giving survivors a chance to tell their story. And part of the testimonies that we collect are those from rescuers and also perpetrators. We don't forget that these are the very people that should give the right kind of information because they're not hiding. They were, they were outside. So we give them the floor to also share their testimonies and show how, show and warn the world and educate future generations.
Thank you, Anita. The work that you've overseen with the colleagues, the peace education team, the educators, has been really profound in Rwanda. I think what is even really more amazing and encouraging is how people have come to Rwanda from surrounding countries or countries in the region, also at risk of atrocities or genocide, and have learned from the experience that has been built in Rwanda, and want to apply the peace education and adapt it to their circumstances to prevent. And that's what the team that's developed this experience in Rwanda has been doing. And we're going to see a short film now, particularly touching on some of our partners and friends in South Sudan and Central African Republic, adapting this methodology from Aegis in Rwanda to their own situation. Stay with us, Anita, because we need you for the discussion just at the end in about 12 minutes time.
The hope we have in Rwanda, if peace and reconciliation is possible after genocide, it's possible everywhere in the world.
Les jeunes Rwandais ont compris que le passé les a conduits dans cette ténèbre.
Aegis Trust and the Kigali Memorial Center has been the force behind our continued hope for peace building in South Sudan.
Ce qu'ils ont fait au Rwanda, ils peuvent faire ça aussi ici.
If it has happened in Rwanda, it might happen in our country too, because we are so much divided. When I realized that Freddy himself, the country director, was one of the survivors, and then he knew some of the people who killed his family members, I realized that forgiveness is healing. It makes you feel free when you forgive somebody. And that made me think of what can be done in South Sudan, because there's so many out there who feel that forgiving cannot help.
My name is Lambert Kanamugire. I am Rwandan. My work consists in restoring social cohesion in the Central African Republic through peace education.
When I went to South Sudan, I went to meet youth leaders. Above all, I went to train them in a few things that I had learned myself here in Rwanda, because they are going through a conflict and we went through a genocide. They were saying, we want to learn more from you guys in Rwanda.
The most memorable moment, we organized a workshop and invited 26 chiefs of different villages. At the end, one of the chiefs, on his way home, he met a person who made him suffer. After seeing the man, the chief of that village said, it would be the end of your life if I haven't yet attended a peace education workshop today. So please feel safe. I'm not going to kill you, but I invite you to attend the second day of the workshop.
When the conflict broke up, the warring side started mobilizing the young people using traditional leaders. So we realized that the only way to at least do something is to get these traditional leaders to Rwanda. The chiefs went back to their villages and he started telling people, whatever we are doing right now will not help us. We can mobilize our young people to fight and they lose their lives. Why don't we mobilize them to go to school? The warring parties were realizing that, oh, these chiefs, they want to think independently.
It is very important. This peace education must be put into curriculum in the Southern Sudan.
If all of us as teachers can preach about peace to our young ones, these students come from different backgrounds. And as they go back with the message of peace, it can bring this country to a peaceful situation.
It happened in Jungle State, it happened in Upper Nile, and it happened in Bentiu. Lives have been saved.
We heard very briefly there about the situation in the Central African Republic. And just to recap the situation there in 2013, the capital city Bangui was overtaken by rebels calling themselves the Seleka. As they did so, huge atrocities were committed. A new group was then formed called the Anti-Balaka, and they in turn committed all sorts of crimes, atrocities, and sexual violence. This has led to some 5,000 people being killed and terrible wounds and trauma in the across Central African Republic. And it was in that situation that bridges needed to be built. The faith leaders from Central African Republic visited Rwanda and came and appealed to our team, Aegis Trust team, to take this peace education and adapt it in Central African Republic. We were going to be joined by our coordinator in Central African Republic, Alan Lazaret. They've had terrible connection problems due to a tornado that occurred earlier this week, but I managed to catch up with him earlier, and this is the conversation that we had about the peace education program and being developed and rolled out in Central African Republic in CAR today.
It just came to CAR because it has been invited by the faith leaders and the government. Taking the example from what we did in Rwanda, we developed a peace education program, mobile exhibitions, 12 panels relating the stories of CAR. If Central African people, if they want to resolve the conflicts they are going through, they need to draw from the lessons of the past in order to build the present and the future. So we developed the peace education program, and then we took that mobile exhibition to different communities, and it helped reconcile people. It reconciled Muslims and Christians together. It reconciled Balakas and Selekas together. So the impact this mobile exhibition created on different groups was so significant. There was another project also, which was called like Kiringona Kodro, a consortium financed by European Union, working in the Southwest, mainly where people have fled abroad to Cameroon and to Congo, and then they are returning. So they say, we need your unique message in the package we want to deliver to the people. And so we took that work there, and then we sensitized people. They came together and they went to welcome the different Muslims that were returning. And then the Muslims coming down from the trucks, they saw there were Christian ladies and Christian men coming to welcome them with cups of teas and with donuts and everything they could do to help them. They said, but we thought you were our enemies. They said, yes, we thought so as well, but we didn't know. We were like manipulated. But now that we have critical thinking, empathy, and personal responsibility, that you and I, we are friends and we are bound to live together, to share the same country, we have the same faith. So they are working now together in those different communities.
Could you just explain the more recent conflict? Now there's something else has happened, and that's more recent, isn't it?
December 2020, a new militia was created, CPC, Coalition of Patriots for Change. Former Selekas and former Antibalakas, they came together to overturn the power from the actual president who was voted democratically. January 13th, they came almost at the doors of Bangui in the north and the southwest. They tried a coup, which fortunately didn't succeed, but many people died. And in the wake, they choked the corridor leading to Bangui, which usually brings like food and everything the country needs from our nearest port in Cameroon. The road was blocked, and so no food was coming to Bangui. The prices started going very high, and people started like going through starvation. Those who went in the bush couldn't stay there because there were militias there in the bush, and those who were in the cities couldn't also stay because there is hunger. And so we thank God for the airlift, the first airlift which arrived in Bangui. By this time, it was extremely difficult to find food to eat, even in the supermarket.
You've explained to us the impact that you've observed of peace education in helping to prevent violence, bring people together. Yeah. You're now describing the situation of acute hunger because of the siege of Bangui in December 2020. What impact does this hunger have on peace and peace education? And as a follow-up question to that, the airlift of food that that was some of our friends that are listening today contributed to, how does that food relief contribute as well to peace building?
Okay, thanks, James, for the questions. Most of those young people who couldn't find food to eat, they joined militias because if they have guns, they can go into the villages and take like goats without buying them and kill and eat. So most of the young people joined the militias. And so it was in the midst of this situation that the first airlift arrived. We planned just to give food, but the women, they turned this food into like peace building activities. Muslim ladies, Christian ladies, they would come together and then they would receive their flour and go, they share it, they make donuts, they sell. They said, okay, tomorrow you are the one selling. I'm selling today. Tomorrow you sell because you have some money. And then they would come again. And then, so it developed a kind of peace building activities around the food that arrived from the through the airlift. And even now it is spreading through different groups of women in the churches, in the mosques, in the communities. Even those who are not attending, having any faith at all, they are still benefiting from that. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Alan, for sharing with us your whole experiences over the past 7 years. You've been leading with the Aegis Trust in CAR. Before you go, could you just explain to us what's been happening this week in CAR? Because there's another extremely difficult situation happening.
There was like 6 to 7 days ago, a tornado, a very strong tornado hit Bangui. And now, by the time I'm speaking, there is no electricity in the city, and there is no running water because the water company uses electricity to distribute water to the people, and then they cannot anymore treat the water. So there is no running water, there is no electricity. In the hospitals, the different hospitals are calling people to come to go to the mortuaries and retrieve the corpses of the relatives that are there because there is no electricity. Corpses are decaying. 2 days ago, the government issued a communique via the air that asking people, if you have the symptoms of COVID, please don't come to the hospital because we don't have the what it takes to take care of you. Stay indoors and lock yourself up. So it was a great desperation hearing that communique. People are saying, but where in the world are we heading to? There is war, there is hunger, there is no electricity, no water, and now we have COVID. And the government is asking us to stay home if we have the symptoms. So it's pretty chaotic, but we don't lose hope. We hope that someday, maybe in the coming weeks, things will come back to normal. We're really hoping and praying for that, James.
Well, we hope and pray also, Alan, with you in a very, very challenging situation that you're in right now. You've managed to charge your phone to speak to us.
Yeah, even the light you are seeing now is from the kit. I'm using the solar panel kits which he brought to charge my cell phone. Otherwise, then I would be like without phone, like most of the people here.
Well, we'd better let you preserve your power because it's going to get dark there soon, and you need a little bit more time to charge up the batteries, I imagine. And Alan, just want to thank you so much for taking the time to share with us right now, and for the incredible work that you've been leading on with the faith leaders in building peace in Central African Republic over the past 7 years. There's clearly so much more to do.
Thank you very much, James.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, James.
Very difficult situation for our colleagues in the Central African Republic this week. And on top of all of that, there's a terrible COVID situation in Bangui at the same time. We're coming to an end of this segment of Together We Remember. I see that we've also been joined by one of Aegis Trust board members, Ruth Messenger, and thank you for being with us. It's very early in the morning in New York, and I just want to, as we head into the candle lighting to end this ceremony, just want to give any final comments. Freddie may well be tied up with the VIP visits at the memorial, but do you have one, Anita, just 1 minute final comment? I mean, particularly thinking about the state of the world and the atrocities, the violence, the division that we see around the world. We can somehow fall into despair, but I think what I take from hearing you and our colleagues in Rwanda is a sense of hope. How hopeful are you, Anita?
I'm positive. I'm positive because today we are learning about something else. We are unlearning violence to learn about peace. But at the same time, if we are talking about genocide perpetrated against Tutsi, it is because it happened. Otherwise, we would be talking about something else. Our history and, of course, our stories should serve as a lesson to anyone who would wish to bring back the suffering that the world had to endure in the past. It is a call to action, to use everything within our means to make sure that we contribute to that never again, which has been said over and over again. But I am positive that it won't happen again.
Thank you, Anita. Freddie, final word as you lead us in the candle lighting for this Kurubuka commemoration.
Many thanks, James, for guiding us and facilitate this discussion conversation. As Anita mentioned, the commemoration period is our moment to reflect about ourselves, our past, or our future. And the best thing is to be positive. Anita already said that, and be part and contribute and with our stories and our experience to build a world without genocide. So I want to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the victims of genocide and the Holocaust and many other atrocities that happen around the world. My wish is that the past should be an education, a tool to the future, And at this moment, and I would like to say, we always remember, we'll keep them in our mind all the time. We keep the people we lost and people who are in the situation that we've been living in before, saying that and urging the leaders to be able to understand and learn the warning signs. So for that moment, I would like to light a candle in the remembrance and the memory of the victims of genocide, but also to the courage of survivors, and for the world to be a peaceful a place for human being. Thank you.
Thank you. And as Freddie and Anita lead us in the candle lighting, we can all join with our own candles as we finish this segment of Together We Remember.